Hey folks, Merry Christmas. I'm here in my parents' backyard down in North Carolina. I'm actually out here with my dad today, and we're going to be marking an informal start to a whole series about how to master the Weber Kettle. And so, thankfully, Santa was super generous this year and brought my dad this new to us Weber Kettle. It was gently used from some guy in Garner. He cleaned it up for us, made it look really nice. And today, we're going to be learning how to do this beautiful, beautiful pork butt. And we're going to make it so easy that even a first-time smoker like my dad can do it all in the wetter. Exactly. Even dad can do it. So stay tuned, and we'll be with you. Merry Christmas. Pork butt is such a great cut for starters because you really don't have to do anything to it straight out of the package. You could open this out of the cryovac, season it, and throw it on the grill, and the result would be fantastic. And that's essentially what we're going to do here. So we're going to cut this open. I'm going to get this out of the bag. It's a nice looking pork butt. It's only about 7 pounds. Pick this up at the local grocery store. And all we're going to do for seasoning today is just salt, pepper, and Lowry's. And you can use whatever seasoning you got. If you got something new for Christmas, you could use that on here. If it's Chud Rub or Meat Church, Holy Cow, use whatever you want. Pork butts are so forgiving in this sense, and it's going to taste great no matter what seasoning you use. However, since this is a video about teaching somebody how to master the Weber Kettle, especially a pork butt, I'm going to have my dad step in and season this thing. He's done several pork butts in the past on the gas grill, but he's never done one on a Weber Kettle. So why don't you season this butt?
All right, here we go. I'm going to sprinkle some of this on here.
And remember to get all the sides. And this is a nice mixture. It's about 2 parts coarse ground black pepper to 1 part diamond crystal kosher salt. And on this top side, this fat cap side, you can go pretty liberally. This is where a lot of the bark is going to be formed. And so salt and pepper especially attract a lot of smoke. And that's going to give us that dark bark that makes pork butt so great to see, and it also makes it so tasty. And really, you cannot over-season a pork butt. It looks like a lot of seasoning, but after you smoked this thing for 8 to 12 hours or so, you won't notice nearly as much seasoning.
And this has the bone in it.
This is bone in, right. So that's a handy tool for buying pork butts. We'll talk more about that later, about why the bone in is such a useful tool.
There we go.
All right, so shake that off. Spin it around, bounce it down a few times, just make sure there's nothing loose, and flip it back over to the fat cap. And what we're going to do now, and this is something that people do with a lot of briskets, and this adds a little bit of extra taste to our seasoning, is to cover the top in Lowry's. So I want you to just take this and just sprinkle it over the top of the pork butt. You don't have to go heavy because Lowry's is pretty powerful, but we just want to get a little bit of extra flavor onto that fat cap. All right. This butt's looking good. Let's take this outside and get it on the smoker. All right, we're here outside, and we've got this new to us grill lit for the first time with some nice Fogo lump charcoal. And so we're gonna go ahead and get this butt on. And what we're gonna do is I'm gonna have my dad face the butt with the bone toward the fire. So it's actually 180 degrees from that position, 90 degrees this way. Yeah, just like that. And right in the middle of the grate, perfect. All right. And so we've got that on there. I'm going to fill up our water pan, which is just going to help add some moisture to the cook chamber. And we're going to go down with a nice dense hickory chunk right on top of the lit coals. We're going to put the lid back on, make sure that our top vent is over the meat. Going to have that about 50% of the way open, and the bottom we're just going to have barely open to allow for just a little bit of airflow. We've got a thermometer on the grate level to make sure that we're not getting too hot too quick, but it's 34 degrees outside, so this should be a perfect time to add a lot of dense smoke. Feeling good, Dad?
Looks good.
Let's go. Oh, and thanks to my dad for catching this, but today we are actually using the slow and sear insert on this Weber kettle. So we've got an indirect fire setup with all the coals on one side and the meat on the other. And we're hopefully, with the vent positioned over the meat, going to create that nice airflow that we can match on, say, an offset smoker or some bigger cooker like that. All right, we're about 3 hours into this pork butt cook. We've been holding steady temperatures between 225 and 250 and been doing really well with the smoke. As you can see, there's just this really light blue smoke coming out of the kettle here. That's kind of the ideal smoke we're looking for. Anything thicker than that is fine for a little while, but if it starts to get too thick for too long, that's when it's going to start to taste acrid and over smoked. But this right here is a perfect amount of smoke. Again, we've barely got the bottom vent open, maybe just a quarter of an inch, and the top vent is only open about halfway. We have only looked at this maybe twice in the last 3 hours just to make sure that our coals are in good shape and that we have enough wood chunks on there. But let's go ahead and take a peek. So here we are, the big reveal.
Ooh,
What do you think, Dad?
looks awesome already. I mean, that's starting to get a bark on it there.
That's right. And so how do you think the coals have been doing so far?
I'm amazed at how long they're lasting, to be honest with you.
I am too, and this is the first time I've used the Fogo black bag charcoal, but this looks amazing. This is already forming a bark, and you can see the fat cap kind of wants to split open already, which is a good sign to know when you want to wrap. We're getting a little low on wood over there, so we might throw another chunk in, but this is looking gorgeous. So we're going to close this up and check in maybe another couple hours. One thing you can guarantee on Christmas Day is that dads are going to take a nap, but we need more charcoal. Our fire's starting to go down a little bit. Temperatures are beginning to dip, which means it's time to add some more coals. Not going to get too crazy with it, just enough to keep this fire nice and toasty. Not going to change anything on the vents, just going to keep it. So make sure we have enough coals in there. Everything's looking good. That's looking gorgeous. See you in a little while. All right, so we've been going for about 6 hours now, and we've increased the temperature just a little bit. We're rocking solidly around 250, maybe even 260, 265. And as you can see, we're looking great now. The fat cap has clearly split, and the bark is looking great. It's nice and set. Coals are a little low, but that's okay. We can refill them. But the way to know when to wrap, not only is the split fat cap a good indicator, but also we're going to take the temperature. So Dad, why don't you go in? We have a thermopop here, and you're just going to insert it in different parts of the pork butt. And you're going to see it's about 160, and so let's try another part of the pork butt. It's about 165 in that part, and let's try one more spot. And about 165 there too. So what that says to me is that it's time to wrap. So what do you think about this cook so far, Dad? How do you feel about how this cook has gone?
It looks great. Looks amazing. I got to sneak in a little nap, and you did a lot of the work. So good work. Looks
Well,
great.
I haven't actually done that much. In all honesty, all I did was put some more coals in it, and we've really just kind of let this one sit. So let's get this wrapped up. All right, so we're getting ready to wrap this thing, and I'm not even going to touch a thing. I'm just going to let my dad take care of it. So we're going to be doing a foil boat. So as you can see, we've got two pieces of heavy-duty foil overlapped with one another in sort of a T shape. And he's just going to roll toward the outside and get this foil as snug as possible to the pork. And what this does is this allows that fat cap to keep rendering while ensuring that we also just keep cooking as quickly as possible. You could really go without a wrap if you wanted to. There's no need to wrap a pork butt at this stage, but daylight is in short supply these days in the wintertime. So the more time we can spend out in the daylight, the better. And so that looks good. Nice job, Dad.
Good. All right.
How was that? Was that pretty easy?
Yeah, I think that's my first wrap ever.
All right, so I think what you can actually do, this is pretty hot. Remember, it's 160 degrees, but since we rolled it toward the outside, you can pretty much grab that on the handles there that you've kind of made on the sides and just bring that right over to the grill. And right back on where it was. Bring it back a little bit closer to the edge. We got that trough there, remember? All right, we're all set.
All good.
We're going to check on this every hour or so until we get to probe tender, or about 200 degrees or so. So maybe a few more hours, hopefully not too long.
Great.
So we're about 7.5, 8 hours into this cook, and I've been looking at it, probing it. I think we're done. We've been rolling at about 275 to 325 for the last few hours, ever since we did the foil boat. The reason you can do that is because it's protected on all sides, except for the fat cap, which we want to expose because we need to render all that fat. And also because we did a foil boat, as opposed to wrapping the entire thing in foil, the bark on top is going to remain crispy and delicious. Not to say you couldn't wrap the entire thing in foil or butcher paper, but this certainly leaves a better texture for your pork butt. But let's take a look. This is looking just about perfect. We're almost out of coals, so that's good timing. But for the real test, we need to make sure that not only are we getting the right temperatures, but we also are probing tender. That's just as important, to make sure that the meat itself is done cooking. Cooking to temperature is one thing, but making sure that it actually feels tender is really the true test of when this is done. So I'm going to let my dad do the final test here. So let's look for some temperatures first. That looks good, 200 there. So let's try a couple other spots.
Why did we go off here?
198, that looks
about
good.
200.
What about down here on this corner? 201, definitely good. All right, so now, without looking at the number on the top, describe what it's like to poke the thermometer around the meat.
Well, it's super soft once you get through the little bark fat cap, and then it's really goes in really smoothly.
What would you say it would be like pushing the thermometer into? Like if you could compare it to something else.
Like ice cream, maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, a common comparison is like melted butter or like a jar of peanut butter.
Yeah.
Would you say it's similar to that?
It's pretty close. I'm going to say peanut butter is probably a little softer than this feels right now, but it feels really good.
All right,
Yeah.
So good enough to me. The numbers look great. Tenderness is spot on. So this is done. So now we're going to get this off the grill, take it inside, and we're going to let it come down to an internal temperature of 140 degrees. At that point, you can pull it, do whatever you want. If you want to hold it at 140, you could certainly do that, but this is probably going to take about an hour and a half to get it down to the temperature before it starts, it's before it's ready to eat. And that's to just let the juices reabsorb. That's to let the fat and the muscle fibers relax a little bit more. And that way, when we eat it, it doesn't dry out instantly. So we'll check back in when this is down to 140 degrees in about an hour and a half.
Awesome.
Okay, so we've let this pork butt rest for about an hour. And in the meantime, it's cooled down. All the juices have come back into the pork butt. Muscle fibers have contracted. And so this is ready to pull and eat. And so I'm going to walk him through the whole process of how to pull this, what to look for to know that it's done. And we're just going to give this a taste test to enjoy it on Christmas Day. We have other dinner plans, but this is our sort of treat for the afternoon.
Let's go.
All right. So if you want to just unwrap the boat.
The boat's full of water.
All the delicious juices.
Yeah.
And we're going to locate that bone that we aimed at the fire earlier in the cook.
it.
Right there. Yeah. So go ahead and pull that.
Pull it.
It should pull right out. There it is.
It's like curved.
Yep.
There we go.
And look at that. So that right there, that's your thermometer.
Ooh, it's hot.
If it comes out clean like that, it's done.
There's a piece of meat on there. Ow, it's hot.
It's hot. Careful.
Okay.
All right, so let's pull some of this. It shreds. It basically just falls apart.
Look at that.
Yeah. And the bark on top is crispy.
The bark looks amazing.
All right, so I'll give you a fork. You can just dive right in. I'm going to grab a piece.
Some bark on there.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. Oh, man. That melts in your mouth.
That was so good.
Holy smokes. That is so ridiculously tender. It's literally melting in your mouth. Look at the cat. He's like, what is that? I want some.
So we cooked this.
Oh my gosh.
We cooked this for about 8 hours and we let it rest for another hour. So that's only a 9-hour cook. How much effort do you think that took to make this entire pork butt?
It was like 25 minutes of hands-on time, I think. Total.
And the rest of it's just sitting around waiting for the pork butt to cook.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And so do you think that you could do this on your own again?
No doubt.
All right.
No doubt at all.
That's all we need. A glowing endorsement.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's great.
All right. Well, we're going to get this all shredded up, get it back into some bags, and save it for later. And on that note, we wish you a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And see you
And
next
a Happy
time.
New Year.
Happy New Year, too.